TransformationTalkRadio.com to illuminate the truth in your daily life as you experience life, love, and abundance from a whole new perspective. This hit show will leave you feeling lighter and bring you into a place of infinite possibilities every day in every way. Visit TruthTalkRadioshow.com for upcoming transformative topics and guests.
On the cutting edge of the new mainstream, Christine Upchurch is passionate about bringing together science, psychology, and spirituality in a way that can be applied to our everyday lives for true transformation. The Christine Upchurch Show, stellar conversations to illuminate your journey, engages some of the most outstanding visionaries on the planet in lively dialogue to inspire you to become that bright light you're meant to be. Join Christine every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time on KKNW, AM 1150, and Transformation Talk Radio.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Cultural Brilliance Radio, the DNA of organizational excellence. Claudette Rowley is in the house. Claudette, before we get into this, because I know we get talking about this and we just totally time stops. But before we get back into talking about the foundations of innovation, I'd love for you to take a moment to let folks know, first of all, how they can find out more about you and how can they contact you.
Thanks, Pat. So the best way to find out more about me and contact me is through my website, which is ClaudetteRowley.com. Simple and easy.
Cool. And, when you go there, please, everybody, take a look. And what you're going to find is you're going to find information about cultural brilliance. I want to make sure you take a look at that. And in the shows that Claudette and I are going to do together, we're going to really talk about cultural brilliance, the essence of it. But what is it, this thing that organizations so shy away from? And why is it that most of the conversation about culture folks talk about not being able to have? Well, that's why Claudette has created what she's created. Cultural innovation is so important in the world we live in today. I mean, the business model for it, Claudette, everything around this is important. And most of the time, we don't say cultural innovation. We just say innovation. And we forget that there are actually people here. So, before the break, I said we're going to talk about learning. We started to talk about listening, and we're starting to talk about risk taking. But these three things together are very dynamic, aren't they?
They absolutely are, because if you're not listening, it's hard to know what step to take next, or you're going to miss really important information that someone might have. And in order to take risks, you need to be able to learn from the risks you've taken. And I was reading an article and it talked about risk taking as a smart failure. That we're not failing because we didn't do our homework and someone made a careless mistake. It's really saying we're taking a calculated risk, and it may fail. There may be mistakes in it. And if that happens, we're okay, because we're going to learn from that and apply what we've learned to the next iteration of it. And as part of that, figuring out what you've learned really requires listening to each other, listening to your peers, listening to yourself, trusting yourself. So they actually do learning, listening, and risk-taking all connect, and you really can't have one without the other. And the other aspect that I would factor into that is the connection relationship piece of things. I sometimes work in organizations where people are expected to innovate in a vacuum, or even if they're not innovating, they're expected to work together really well and closely when they don't actually know each other, let alone trust each other. So when we ask people to collaborate and we ask them to take risks, we actually need to build in some sort of relationship building component so that when they work together, especially if somebody's in Boston and someone's in Seattle and they're never going to be face to face except once or twice a year, for example, that they actually can work and collaborate well and exchange important information and trust each other enough to do that. That really can't be left out of the equation.
Yeah. When you talk about it, it seems so logical and it seems so matter of fact. But I know at the heart of this is, this idea of how we work together, right?
Right.
And yeah, I'm sure we can point to maybe one or two people that come to mind where they've created brilliant things all by themselves. I don't really know a whole lot of them. And so I think that part of this, that I hear you talking about is listening has to do with, you have to have another person to listen, right?
Right.
So this idea of building ideas or idea building, that's done in relationship with people. Let's talk about why that's important and how the culture of innovation really needs to be mindful of the temperament of the people, but not just the temperament, but where they are and whether or not they want to even be innovative.
Great point. Really checking with people to see if they want to be innovative. Because even within an innovative culture, an innovative organization, you're still going to need people managing risks. You're still going to need people managing finances and operations in some ways. People who like to maintain systems and be more conservative about things. They're going to need to be the foundation of the organization from a structural standpoint. So checking in with people to see who's even interested in being innovative, who thinks like that, who wants to be more creative and take those risks, and who has the personality to align with that. This makes me think of one of my favorite examples of innovation. There's a company called Embrace, and it was some students that I believe were in an MBA program originally at Stanford, and they, for a class, ended up taking on a project that became an organization. And what this organization does is it creates has made a product, baby incubators, that are used in rural areas in a lot of third world countries who have, especially areas like southern India that have less access to electricity. And a lot of those parts of the world, they're babies who are born premature or low birth weight, and they can't get access to any sort of warming incubator, let alone get to a hospital. And so this organization, Embrace, was able to actually make and manufacture these incubators for premature babies. It looks like a little sleeping bag for babies, and it warms them for up to 4 hours, and then it gets recharged by putting it in boiling water. And so talk about listening. It was this incredible example of empathic design where they actually went to India. They really found out what materials would work in these communities. How could these incubators be recharged? Well, how would they need to be designed so that it would work for these babies and these moms and dads? And so it's an incredible example of actually listening. And my favorite part of innovation, which is solving a problem that actually needs to be solved.
Yeah. And, when you're looking at this, and I love that you're talking about innovation and we're talking about innovation and culture in the same sentence, because I think that a lot of times we make assumptions about innovation in the culture. I worked for an executive vice president of, a high-tech firm who decided that if we had an ideas program that would ask people for innovative ways to, look at our expenses, how can we cut costs? He just basically said that people wouldn't participate and that he didn't think that this research organization should do this. It should be part of their job. So he was shocked to find out that we did a 30-day campaign. And at the end of that, there were $8 million worth of cost-effective ideas. And sometimes, don't you think, Claudette, that the conversation about innovation has to get past the leadership team, right? It has to be something where the leadership team doesn't stay closed up in their bubble. How important is that? How important is that flow of communication where you even bring people that are down there working in the trenches into the fold of innovation?
It's incredibly important. And I have unfortunately heard many leaders say what you, in the example you gave with the gentleman you're referring to, say to me, I know what my people are going to say. I know what they're deciding in advance what people are going to say versus bringing it up. Well, if we were to, and how could we cut costs? What are some really creative, innovative ways we could do that? And it's interesting to me that we hear those stories over and over again about how employees come together and come up with great solutions that are innovative, that are cost cutting, that are simple and elegant. And yet again, over and over, we see examples of leaders who won't allow that to happen. And I think sometimes, absolutely to your point, this needs to trickle downward through the leadership team into the organization where at least the question gets posed to folks. Can you help us come up with some cost cutting measures? that won't impact the quality of our work or
Yeah.
our company. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, isn't this like to your point about knowing what problem you're solving? I think that's really kind of a really important point is, yeah, you can be super creative, but how does one go about figuring out, wait a minute, what's today's problem? What are we solving? And I'm not really talking about like yesterday, one of our AM stations, literally the power blew in the whole area. I mean, that's an immediate problem that you've got to get down and try to figure out how to do. For an FCC regulated station to go off air, not only are you responsible for your listeners, but boy, I'm telling you, you don't want the FCC to know about that, right?
Right.
So some problems are like that, but some problems you have a little bit more leeway, right?
You do, absolutely, unless it's an immediate crisis like that example. You need to know what problem you're solving. And in organizations, we see this, and I'm sure almost everybody here listening can relate to this, where you're sitting in a meeting and you can't decide what problem you actually need to solve. There's a difference of opinion in the problem definition stage. And that is real. There's no point in trying to solve anything until everybody knows what you're actually doing. And that is a big suck of creativity sometimes. Yet when we can get to the point of saying, okay, we've decided the problem really is that the right people aren't getting the right information in a timely way or something like that, or we figured out what the glitch in our product is, so now we just need to decide how to solve it. Once you've identified what the actual problem is, then you can get into creative brainstorming. Then you can actually start to innovate. What would be the best, easiest, simplest way to solve this problem? And that's another aspect of innovation that we haven't really brought out today, that I think often the most innovative ideas are simple. When you really look at them, and maybe the technology is complicated or things like that in the back end, but the way that the product or solution looks is actually fairly simple.
Yeah. I mean, the example you used, the Embrace example, was really, really pointed right to that. That technology, and I believe that technology was designed after NASA, right? Technology was in a completely different segment, right? The science industry, the space industry, and somebody had the wherewithal to really look at that and say, wow, look at what we could do with that. And so to your point about that, what does it take? And let's talk about this when we come back. What does it take to know that? What does it take to know that sometimes the solution can be right in front of us? What does it really take to have an open mind about that? What does that really, really take? And what perhaps are the downfalls of really not looking out into your culture and asking the people that are actually doing the work? Yeah, let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back.
Awaken to your radiant, authentic self. For over 15 years, Soul Purpose Advocate Nancy Monson has been focused on leading change in the lives of those looking to live their true purpose. She is devoted to supporting people in living a soul-directed life every day. Let Nancy help you overcome fear, worry, and doubt. Visit everydayspirituality.com to learn how Nancy can be your Soul Purpose Advocate.
What is a brilliant culture? And how do we create them? Why are they important? Claudette Rowley has created a breakthrough 5-step process to help you design a culture that is authentic, innovative, and successful. Learn how to create change with Cultural Brilliance Radio, the DNA of organizational excellence, and Claudette Rowley. To learn more or work with Claudette, visit ClaudetteRowley.com.
Francine Vale is a being of light. She believes that all people of planet Earth are as well. As co-host of the Angel Healer radio show, Francine teaches you heart-centered ways to manifest healing on your own behalf and how to integrate love more fully into your daily life. Connect with your angels as you find your life flowing with ease and harmony. Walk the Path of Light with Francine and Dr. Pat Basili every month on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Tune in to the Angel